I like the idea of Ghost having a sense of humor. I was listening to a podcast called The Paranormalist Podcast. It's one of my favorite ones. And one of the segments was about the Titanic. So the story goes like this. There was a man, he was giving a tour on a boat. This was a really experienced tour guide, and this was supposed to be a mock up, I think, of the Titanic somewhere. So he had given these tours thousands of times before. He knew his material really well, but one of the rules that they had at this place that he was giving the tours was that nobody was allowed to wear costumes. Now, of course, I would imagine that it was kind of like Disney bounding, wherein you cannot dress up exactly like a character. But this is because people working on the ship actually did have their own costumes and they would interact with the guests. So just think of a ghost tour where people would dress up characteristic of the times. Now, again, this guy had been doing these tours for a while, so he was pretty familiar with all of the people on board. But there was an off day where things were really slow, and there was a gentleman who had come in for a tour. The man was dressed in period attire, and the guy didn't really think much of it because, again, it's a slow day. They have a lot of cast and crew who on board on those days, so he figured he would just take the man through the entire tour, get him acclimated, try to teach him a couple of cool facts that he could use while he was doing his own job. So the guy does this tour and he does a really good job. He takes a bit of additional time to tell him different tidbits, and the guy's pretty knowledgeable too. And so as they're going on this tour, the guy would point out something obscure and he would get a rebuttal or a bit of a correction from the guy who was with him. And he thought it was odd because there were some things that were hyper specific to the actual Titanic. Like you would only know it if really you were there. And so the guy starts getting these weird vibes from the guy he's with, but he doesn't really think anything of it because the tour is coming to a close. But before they leave, the guy's like, hey, I really enjoyed your tour today. I hope to see you next week when you start work, yada, yada. Now, the guy bids him farewell, and as the person who was giving the tour was heading back, he notices like a picture on the wall or something. I forget. And that's when he noticed that the guy in the picture was the same guy who he had just given a tour to. And that guy was the actual captain of the ship, which explains why he knew so much about it. Like I said, to me, that's one of those stories where you kind of got to wonder if ghosts really do have a sense of humor. Because why would you go through an entire tour, a longer one I might add, knowing you knew everything there is to know about this boat, plus some? Again, though, that is my argument that ghosts, if they were somewhat humorous in life, might also be somewhat humorous in their afterlives. But I want to know what you guys are thinking. Have you guys ever experienced a comical ghost or a humorous ghost? I know there are plenty of stories out there, but I love listening to yours or at least reading them. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you guys in my next video.